Nightingale offers a warm, inviting atmosphere with a full menu of American classics like the famous Nightingale Burger and Fries, Ginger Tamari Chicken Wings, and Duck Pastrami Reuben. They're open daily from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. with a full menu available until midnight. Takeout orders also are welcome. Learn more at nightingalempls.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting live from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, also streaming right now on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@TheGailey Welcome to The Gailey Show. I am your host, John Parker. In studio with me, executive producer, Jim Pounds.
Hey, all.
In the control room, hey, Brett, how are you doing today?
Doing all right. How about you?
I feel like it's finally starting to warm up.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't warm up sooner rather than later, I'm going to lose my mind.
Wow.
I'll just say 80 degrees in every forecast before the show.
Wow.
Thank you. I would really appreciate that, actually.
Psychological
Thank
warfare.
you.
That's great.
That's one way to get me to do the show,
Just
to be
lie to it.
upbeat.
Yeah, exactly.
Our call-in number, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205, or you can chat with us on our YouTube live stream. What is on the show today? Well, White House correspondent for the Washington Blade, Christopher Kane, will be joining us again. He has new reporting on Chris Pappas, who is running for the open Senate seat in New Hampshire. And the White House and the Air Force are obsessed with pronouns. Going to talk about that. And Maine versus Trump is really heating up. Up first, we're going to talk about some news breaking out of the United Kingdom today. The UK's top court, so their Supreme Court, says that the definition of a woman is based on biological sex and excludes transgender people. Now, this came out of a challenge to a situation that was happening in Scotland, where there was a set of public seats that were set aside just for women. And the UK Equality Act was ruled, that folks were interpreting the UK Equality Act as, well, trans women, being women, could serve in one of those posts. But noted psychopath J.K. Rowling was like, no, that means men are going to be serving with women, and you're taking away things that are only for women. And the 5 judges ruled that the UK Equality Act means that trans women can be excluded from some groups and single-sex spaces, such as changing rooms, homeless shelters, swimming areas, and medical or counseling services that are provided only to, quote-unquote, women.
Wow.
And the court said that their unanimous ruling shouldn't be seen as a victory by one side. I don't understand how
else could it be
that
interpreted?
Can be, interpreted.
Yeah.
The thing that the thing that here it is right here, so folks can, I want to be very clear about what was at stake here. So it was a 2018 law passed by the Scottish Parliament saying that 50% of the membership of the boards of Scottish public bodies should be women, and that trans women with gender recognition certificates were to be included in the quota of that. And a gender recognition certificate in the UK is where, if you're trans, you go in and you demonstrate a whole bunch of things, and the government issues you a certificate acknowledging your correct gender. Okay. Well, apparently those are meaningless now. The only thing that the court said still matters is that they are that the legal protections for gender people still exist under other laws. So they can't be discriminated against, but somehow they can be discriminated against. It's going to be a very weird situation in the United Kingdom. What they are basing, though, in terms of biology, is the idea of what are your sexual organs in the womb. So do you have a penis or do you have a vagina? And so when you're saying biology, and I'm gonna put my hat on here as a former LGBTQ health equity instructor, in the state of Minnesota, and I worked with medical academic degree programs. I worked with clinics. I worked with insurance companies. I had curriculum that was actually approved by the boards governing the medical doctors and social work. So I would like to think that I have a little something to contribute to the biology side of this. Here's the first thing. Let's start with chromosomes. All right. So we have an understanding, or, if you recall from your, high school biology, that if you have XX chromosomes, you are a girl. And if you have XY chromosomes, you are a boy. However, those don't always line up neatly. There is the story of the facts of a individual identified as a man, had the XY chromosomes, also had a penis, went to get the FCC says that I can say that word, right? You're freaking out, Jim, but I think we're all okay that we can say.
All right.
What do you want me to?
Male organ.
Male. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Let's get over ourselves. We're having a biology discussion. We're not 12-year-old kids. So there's the. So you've got me off track here. The actual case of an individual had XY chromosomes, had a penis, went to have a what is it called when no when you oh my gosh, what is it called when you're not
top surgery?
Hernia. That's I was going to say hysterectomy.
Hernia.
A hernia.
Oh, yes.
I was going into surgery for a hernia,
Yes.
and the doctors during the surgery found that this guy had a fully formed uterus inside his body. Now, this guy was like older age. Okay, wasn't in his teens, wasn't in his 20s or 30s, was older, had lived his entire life with a uterus. Okay, so it is possible to have XX chromosomes or and still be mostly male. Okay, so you can have the chromosomes, but you can still have male anatomy, physiology, and psychology. So when the court says that it's biology, here's my first problem with that. You can have chromosomes that don't match your sexual anatomy. And that is, what do we call that? Science. We call that biology. There is and this is from National Geographic, right? There's sex differentiation that can be set in motion by a gene on the Y chromosome, which is the SRY gene. It turns the protogonads into testes, right? Without the SRY gene, the gonads turn into female anatomy, your uterus, your vagina, etc. But it is not always straightforward. The SRY gene may be missing in some people. It may be dysfunctional, which can lead to an XY embryo that fails to develop male anatomy and can be identified as a girl at birth. Or it might show up on the X chromosome, leading to an XX embryo that does develop male anatomy and is identified at birth as a boy. Okay, so there's that, just in terms of real biology of the variance that can happen, because nature, there's a lot of variety in it, and things happen, right? So what do you do with that chromosome thing? That leads us to the conversation of intersex people who have the reality, the biological reality of having multiple versions and different states of development of both male and female organs, sexual anatomy, chromosomes. So what do we do in that situation? Biology. That is actual biology. And then we have things that there are analysis of brains. Okay? And there are And these studies are kind of problematic, the studies of brains and gendered brains. Is there a female brain? Is there a male brain? And we're really going to have to, leave our, nonsense of men are from Mars, women are from Venus. That stuff really tends to break down when you're looking at biology. But there is some very limited studies. They, the studies are small. They are often only involving, a half dozen transgender individuals. So there are, problematics with that, recognizing that there are limitations, right, in those studies. But the research has been robust in the sense that we are finding, actually, no, there's something here I want to very specifically call out in this National Geographic search. 1% of people may be experiencing being trans, intersex, having different chromosomes, right? That lead to that you have XX chromosomes, XY, different variations of that don't match, quote unquote, your anatomy at birth. And this is just the really hard thing to deal with when I hear people, and particularly a court, make this definition, this ruling that cites biology when we actually have so much complexity happening with biology. And we're just going to only accept the quote-unquote biology of someone's sexual organs at birth as the only marker of gender identity. And we're going to apparently ignore the biology of chromosomes. We're going to ignore the biology of, people being intersex. We're just going to ignore all of that. We're only going to accept the science that confirms our belief system. Or we're just going to be anti-science and just toss it out altogether, right? When we see with vaccines and kids dying of measles when there's absolutely no reason to be dying from measles in 2025, when we have a perfectly valid vaccine that has 0 side effects.
Yep.
So this is the problem that I have with these arguments that people say, oh, biology. Yeah, okay, fine. You want to talk about the biology? We've got a lot of great science here. Real biology, real science, real facts that say in 1% of the human population, there are trans people. The end. The end. So when folks are telling you, and you're hearing this if you're in conversations, you don't need to learn the science. You don't need to be an expert on the science. But when someone comes up and tries to say this to you, you can say, well, actually, there is a lot of science based in reality that biology dictates there are trans people. We're going to take a break. We're on the flip side. You're listening to The Gailey Show.
Step into a world of financial empowerment with the Do Different Better show. I'll be your host, Elaine Rasmussen. Join me Sundays at noon on AM 950 as we do a deep dive into wealth education with topics like investing, real estate, and entrepreneurship. No nonsense, tell like it is, keeping it 100 for everyday people like you. Tune in to get practical insights to rewrite your financial future. So each Sunday at noon, let's do different better. You can hear Do Different Better anytime on your favorite app. Learn more about me at socialimpactnow.com.
I'm Rachel Schroman, owner of Schroman Law, and I believe you deserve information. Our firm offers free quarterly estate planning seminars at our office in St. Paul. At these seminars, you can learn the basics of estate planning from an attorney to help you determine which estate planning documents will meet your needs and goals in an efficient and cost-effective manner. You can learn more and register at our website, schromanlaw.com/events. That's SCHROMEN law.com/events.
Minnesota's program for news, information, and perspective at the intersection of mobility and technology. It's the Tech Mobility Show. I'm Ken Chester, your host. I cover evolving mobility and technology trends and topics in a way that's easy to understand. Things are changing fast, and it's easy to get lost in the flow. By tuning into the Tech Mobility Show, you can stay informed about the latest happenings with electric vehicles, personal privacy issues, climate change, and more. That's the Tech Mobility Show every Saturday from 9 to 10 p.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
You want to feel important. You want to be part of something bigger, something that matters and that you can help change things. You want to feel like you belong. We felt that way too. I'm Sergeant Michael Tislin from Chaska, Minnesota, and that's why we did something about it. We aren't just Minnesota Army National Guard soldiers. We are people just like you, and together we can make a difference. Take on your legacy. Visit nationalguard.com/MN to find out more. Sponsored by the Minnesota Army National Guard, aired by the Minnesota Broadcasters Association and this station.
Cafe Latte offers made-from-scratch soups, salads, sandwiches, and mouth-watering desserts.
So come check out their pizza and wine bar, or get a treat from the bakery made fresh daily. Plus, you can still do online ordering and takeout, along with gift cards. Just go to cafelatte.com and choose from their ever-changing selection of award-winning salads, sandwiches, and soups. Cafe Latte is located off Victoria and Grand and online at cafelatte.com.
Hi, my name is Katty from Minnesota Recovery Connection.
And I'm Erin with Minnesota Recovery Connection.
We'd like you to listen to our show, Redefining Recovery, a Recovery Revolution. It is on Saturdays at 10 a.m. on AM 950.
On the show, we discuss topics about addiction, understanding substance use disorder, the many pathways to recovery, and finding your personal journey.
Listen to Redefining Recovery Saturdays at 10 a.m. and find our podcast on your favorite app.
Welcome back to the Daily Show. I'm your host, John Parker. It is 21 minutes past the hour. Call in number 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. I know that you can hear my frustration, and maybe you're like, I don't want to call in because he sounds angry right now. And I am angry because the Republican Party, conservatives, and unfortunately not an insignificant number of folks on the left or in the Democratic Party just want to toss science out the window when it doesn't conform to their beliefs. And they want to then sit there and point to one or two studies and then say, well, look, science, biology. And when we bring forward peer-reviewed, scientific, longitudinal studies, those are tossed out. Oh, you're just, that's nonsense. So that can't possibly be real. There's no reporting on it from corporate media. Politicians don't bring it up because they don't want to bring it up. It's like the actual science around trans people participating in sports completely debunks the arguments being made in legislatures across the country. And yet they want to sit there and say, biology, biology, biology. All right, fine. You want to talk about biology? I've got some biology for you. And why is this such a big deal? Because we have situations like this in, not Arizona, in Atlanta. A trans woman went to stay at the Extended Stay America, a hotel, made a reservation, traveled to Atlanta to where she was participating in a charity show to raise funds for a friend with cancer, booked a room with Extended Stay America Atlanta North Lake via Expedia. This is according to reporting from LGBTQ Nation. Traveled all day to get there, finally gets there, and the person at the front desk says, oh no, your reservation has been canceled because people like you can't stay here. Really don't like that happening in the South. Where have we heard that before? The agent told her people like me couldn't stay here. She had traveled over 200 miles. So then the management of Extended Stay America found out about this because she was starting to leave. She left a complaint. She was telling her friends and the community, and they were starting to reach out and leave complaints and, say what is going on here. And they started leaving those in the Google reviews and in the company's contact page. So an individual calling himself Edward, and the assistant general manager for the Extended Stay America Atlanta North Lake location, called and left a voicemail for Sadie on March 5th, again, according to reporting from LGBTQ Nation, saying that the claimed that he was working at the front desk that day and that the staff didn't remember any guests checking in with any reservations.
Covering each other, eh?
He also said that he remembered her name because it was a reservation that I quote, I canceled because we didn't have any rooms available. So the individual, Sadie Weiss, has her reservation, like the confirmation, because when you book a room, you get a confirmation of it, right? So she said, here's the confirmation, proof, the receipt of the confirmation, and then said, I never received any notice of the cancellation prior to her arrival. And it would be strange if no one checked in to the extended stay that day, especially considering that Edward is now claiming that they were fully booked and they didn't have any rooms to hand out. He says that he then checked the security camera footage and said nobody tried to check in during that time window and suggested that she might not have the right location or that he might have been on a break when she showed up. Despite saying that Weiss was told by this staff member that there were no management people that could come in and help. They were all out. There was nothing that they could do. You can't stay here. People like you can't stay at this hotel. Then he calls back and leaves a separate voicemail saying, well, actually, what really happened was that you didn't actually talk to an employee of Extended Stay America. You were actually talking to a guest because all of our employees, they wear name badges. And because the person you talked to didn't have a name badge on, you didn't actually talk to a staff member. So this is why, and when people are saying right now, oh, this is their last stand, this is what bugs me about it. This is MAGA's last stand. This is their last, gasp of power. Everyone's going to wake up and they're going to, stop this. And, this is it. We're going to move away from this. And okay, fine. There may be some truth in that, but there are people who are being harmed by these policies right now.
It's why it was always more important that we have housing protection and employment protection nationwide. Both of those rights, in my opinion, were always more important than marriage rights, because there's a practical thing that you're prevented from doing: getting a hotel room, renting an apartment, buying a house, keeping your job. All of those forms of living are more vital, in my opinion, than having a marriage, which is lovely, but they can't throw you out of your house or deny you a room. And so I think you agree with me that these were the rights that we needed to fight for, not marriage, number one. And I think, as you said, when we got the marriage rights, everybody walked away and said, there, we're done with those people. And of course, we were in danger. We've been in danger of this kind of crap all along.
Well, there's the Equality Act that was introduced during has been introduced many times. We had an opportunity to pass it, and unfortunately didn't get it done for a variety of reasons under the Biden administration. But now we have folks like Governor Newsom, who is sending his staff to the California legislature saying, please do not send me any more bills for LGBTQ rights and for trans rights.
Yeah.
Because he's, palling around with MAGA now and apparently thinks that's going to be his pathway to the presidency in 2028.
This action is me marking him off my presidential candidate list.
Well, does he think that we're not going to remember? We're going to remember. I'm going to make sure, at least on this show, that we remember all of the actions that he is taking in the lead up to announcing his candidacy for president. But it just, for folks who are listening, who are allies, who may be like, well, I don't understand the whole transgender thing and it's biology, and how can people just change their gender? There is a lot of biology, actually. There's a lot of science that can break this down for you. There are a lot of current studies that are going to give us more answers if we didn't, cancel all of our science funding research in this country. So please push back on this idea of biology. There is so much variation happening at the chromosome level. There's so much variation happening when it comes to sexual anatomy. There is so much more at stake here than just someone's sexual organs when they're born. We need to push back against that. You're listening to The Gailey Show. When we come back, White House correspondent for the Washington Blade, Christopher Kane.
Hey, it's Tom. Even though I don't live in Minnesota, I've spent enough time there to know how quickly the weather can change. One day it's sunny and the next you're preparing for severe weather. That's where solar plus battery storage from All Energy Solar comes in. With this power-saving combination, you'll gain energy independence and stay connected through blackouts, emergencies, or extreme weather. Solar plus battery storage is perfect for rural areas where power outages are more common, or for anyone tired of worrying about rolling blackouts. And with plenty of incentives still available, All Energy Solar will work with you to make sure you get the most savings possible. For over 15 years, All Energy Solar has been a trusted partner in helping Minnesotans move to affordable, renewable energy. They offer the best battery technology and their own licensed electricians and contractors to ensure top quality installation. So stop paying the utility company and start generating and saving your own power. Get a free consultation today at allenergysolar.com.
Hello, Minnesota. This is Stephanie Miller. Make sure to start your day off right with the Stephanie Miller Show every weekday morning from 8 to 11 right here on AM 950.
Eat Local Minnesota is a great way to find locally owned Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors. You'll find high-quality food and unique eating experiences with dishes from around the world. Just visit eatlocalminnesota.com for your next meal. Crooner's Supper Club offers a classic nightlife experience with 4-star food, drinks, and entertainment. Enjoy local, national, and international artists in the main stage, Dunsmore Jazz Room, or outdoors at the Belvedere Under the Stars. Or relax at Maggie's Lounge. Find your perfect concert experience at croonersmn.com. Crooner's Supper Club, where old school charm meets modern nightlife. Cafe Latte combines a cafe dining experience with gourmet quality food. Plus, you can still do online ordering and takeout, along with gift cards. Just go to cafelatte.com and choose from their ever-changing selection of award-winning salads, sandwiches, and soups. Cafe Latte is located off Victoria and Grand and online at cafelatte.com.
AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Is your remote workforce putting your company at risk? Cyber criminals are targeting your employees with COVID-19 inspired emails and attacking businesses like yours. Hi, Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. Rymark has the tools and expertise to enable your employees to work securely from home. If you need help getting your staff to work remotely and securely, call 651-328-8900 or go to rymarkit.com. That's 651-328-8900 or rymarkit.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly sunny skies today with a high near 61. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 46. And Thursday, rain with a high around 67. Let Natural Lawn handle lawn care so you can enjoy your yard. Their organic-based treatments feed the soil naturally using fewer unnecessary chemicals. It's safer for the kids, pets, and the planet. With no contracts, expert soil testing, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee, your lawn is in good hands. Learn more today at naturallawn.com.
Broadcasting live from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Welcome back to the Gailey Show. It is 33 minutes past the hour. I'm your host, John Parker. In studio with me, executive producer Jim Pounds.
I'm just here silently today.
Well, good news, folks. For the past 56 years, the Washington Blade has been providing us award-winning journalism serving the Washington, D.C. area and the country. You can read the Blade in print and online at washingtonblade.com. You can also become a member, and your contributions will keep vital LGBTQ journalism possible at a time when clear, concise news is needed more than ever. White House correspondent for the Washington Blade, Christopher Kane, returns to the Gailey Show. Hey, Christopher.
Hey guys, great to be with you.
Good to see you again. All right, so you've had some interesting reporting about the Trump administration's obsession with pronouns. So maybe we can start with the press secretary saying, "Hey," well, I mean, there's a story about the press secretary, and then there's a story out of the Air Force. So maybe we start with the Air Force, actually, where there was an executive order saying no more pronouns in emails. They sent out a rule as well, and now that's changed.
That's right. So actually going back a little bit further, on Trump's first day in office, one of the executive orders that he passed was this narrow definition of sex and gender that basically said that that your gender identity must align with your sex at birth, and that those who are transgender or intersex, essentially that doesn't exist, is the administration's position. And as an extension of that, there was a separate executive order in which the president directed U.S. federal agencies to prohibit the use of pronouns in email signatures pursuant to the terms of the first executive order about gender and sex. So all of that to say, the most recent developments were first that actually I don't remember exactly which order this happened, but in any case, so it was reported that the administration's position officially throughout the administration is that they will not field inquiries or engage with reporters in cases where they include pronouns in their email signature, which is, as you can understand, like it's one thing for them to make rules for the administration and for what people that work for the government and for the administration, but this is really far outside that. So. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling, but the second piece of this was that that the U.S. Air Force actually reversed course on the pronoun ban, and this is because, at least the reporting has led us to believe that this is because the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act, which is the military spending bill, contained language that would have prohibited bans on pronouns. So it's kind of a technicality, and we'll see how it shakes out. But it's interesting that this is the one and only area where there's been any kind of pushback against the ban on pronouns.
It's, I mean, also interesting given that they're just ignoring unanimous Supreme Court rulings at this point. So I'm interested that they are actually following a piece of legislation.
So, and the other piece of this too, which I find so fascinating, is that like there are all number of reasons that people might want to include he, him, she, her in the signature box of their emails. Not just transgender people, but people with gender neutral names, for example. A lot of men are named Ashley. It's less common among men, but they may want to include that to avoid confusion. So it really is. It feels like government overreach for sure.
Well, in Armenian culture, Karen is actually Karen, which is a male name.
Oh, yeah.
So,
for sure. And we live in an increasingly globalized world, right? Like working with people from countries overseas where you don't really know in a lot of cases.
I should point out that in Armenian, Karens are not Karens.
Do they have a separate word for that?
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Yeah,
I haven't looked at it yet, unfortunately.
As soon as that ruling came out, I know we both, you might have already had them in your email signature, but I put them pronouns in mine because just my disgust that they would be wasting time on something so patently absurd as a priority.
Right.
Anyway.
It's interesting. I actually thought that I had them in my signature, and then I went and checked when I was reporting on the story, and it turns out I didn't. So,
but you might have to now to be able to not be ruled ineligible to communicate with the White House. I mean, it's so absurd.
Well, right. I mean, I don't think they necessarily need an excuse to not engage with me, but we'll see.
Wow. Well, there's some ongoing drama between the state of Maine and the Trump administration. It's hard. You've got some reporting from last week, and then there's reporting from this week, and so I'm not quite sure where to start. Because also this goes back a couple of months now to an absolutely wonderful showdown or exchange at the White House between the governor of Maine, Janet Mills, and Trump, where she's basically like, yeah, see you in court. How do you want to start this story here? Because they're suing Trump. Trump is suing them, all over trans athletes. Apparently the great issue of our time.
Yeah. Who knew?
So I think we should start with that Oval Office meeting that you were just describing. Actually, I'm sorry, it was in the White House. I'm not sure whether it was in the Oval, but in any case, so this was at the end of February, and the listeners might have seen clips of this because it was circulated widely on X and social media. But essentially, it was a meeting of the National Governors Association in the White House, and it was Democratic and Republican governors who were gathered together to meet with the president. And in the course of this meeting, which was open press, meaning that reporters were in the room and it was being filmed and everything else, the president asked the governor of Maine, Janet Mills, a Democrat, Maine is a blue state, whether she would enforce the administration's executive order prohibiting trans athletes from competing in sports. And she said, I will follow the law. I think she said, I will follow state and federal law. And part of the reason that she said that is because she and other officials in Maine believe that the trans athlete ban is in conflict with the Maine Human Rights Act, with provisions of that. So for that reason, they were disinclined to enforce it. And so that happened at the end of February, and that kicked off this standoff that now has lasted several months and has pulled in the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Department of Education, the Justice Department, the National National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So all of these agencies, in various ways, either launching investigations into Title IX violations by schools in Maine, or looking at the housing of transgender inmates in Maine in women's correctional facilities. They're going after anything that they can and any excuse that they can to pull or repeal or pause federal funding for the state.
The Agriculture Department is looking into education policy?
So the Agriculture Department was, I believe, withholding grants for the University of Maine university system. And I believe that was also over, was it over Title IX? Sorry, there's a lot to keep track of. I'm forgetting details, but.
Okay, so they're freezing funding, and then so Maine sued them.
Yes. So Maine. So the latest development, which happened today, was that the Justice Department formally sued the state of Maine for Title IX violations. So this gets a little bit complicated because Title IX is the anti-discrimination ordinance it was started basically through the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and it prohibits sex-based discrimination in schools and educational facilities. So under the previous administration, under Title IX, denying a categorical denial of the right of trans athletes to compete was considered a violation of Title IX. Under this administration, allowing any trans athletes to compete is considered a violation of Title IX. So it's a total reversal.
Wow. And are they expecting then that, are they filing this with the expectation that they're going to take it to the Supreme Court?
So litigation is definitely in the cards for a long time, I would expect, for these issues to be adjudicated in multiple federal courts. And that's in fact what Trump and Governor Mills said to each other in the Oval Office, as you mentioned. I'll see you in court was how they left things after that heated exchange. So that's where we're going to see a lot of these battles playing out.
Jim, you had a question?
Well, one thing I appreciate about you, Christopher, I feel like we sit here and talk about something in a serious way that's not easy to understand or grasp, and there's lots of conflicting details and all that stuff. But compared to most reporting, I feel like we really get a chance to sort of mull it over and talk about the pros and cons. And you're very good about catching something and putting it in the right order. And I appreciate all of this. On the surface of it, of course, if somebody already believes that trans people aren't legitimate by some weird kind of thinking, I guess none of it matters. But what I care about are the independents who don't know what to think, or haven't thought about it at all, or can't really get a sort of concentrated way of thinking about it. So I appreciate that we're spending the time on this, because on the surface, it seems so patently ridiculous to call this a priority. It talks about how trivial this administration is, in my opinion. And in fact, we're giving it the importance because it is important to 1.7 million or 1.8, whatever the actual population of trans people are. We're giving it that importance. And I really appreciate the fact that you're here to do that.
Thanks so much, Jim, for saying that. I really appreciate that.
And also your reporting just breaks down, like I'm looking at the article that you had, because you've been covering the Maine issue for a few weeks now. And the last week's article, you literally just have, okay, we starting in February 21st, here is how everything that has happened since then in very clear language. And so for folks who want to read Christopher's reporting, you can go to washingtonblade.com/Christopher Kane. Actually, we're including a link in our show notes and website to that effect, so you can read that reporting that he is doing. Today, you also had a story that was published around the Pentagon urge to reverse Naval Academy book bans.
Oh, this is interesting. So this is this was another thing that I saw on social media before I saw the reporting about it. But at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, hundreds of titles of books were pulled from the shelves of the library. And this included books that in many schools, including in schools that I attended as a kid, were mandatory reading. For example, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And this was done pursuant to an executive order on, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something like ending indoctrination in public schools. And it was targeting any kind of curriculum or instruction or classroom discussion involving matters of like racial justice or diversity, equity, and inclusion, the teaching of America's history on race. So what we saw was this real, what felt to a lot of people, I think, like an overcorrection, taking Maya Angelou off the shelves in compliance with this order. So the other thing that some of these organizations that wrote to the Pentagon urging them to reverse the policy, these groups noted that Mein Kampf remained on the shelves, as well as some other white supremacist titles or titles that glorified white supremacy, including the Ku Klux Klan. So, I mean, it's really something else.
I mean, that says everything right there. It's couched in the same language as responsible people use and legal language and stuff, but there's nothing responsible about it. It's the opposite of American thinking, traditional American thinking, I think, about, melting pot and all that. We're ignoring all of that to create a white supremacist society couched with safe government terms. And but it's not. It's clear, like you just said, they left Mein Kampf in there. That didn't offend anybody, and that's all any of us really need to know what we're dealing with. Sorry, I'm not asking very many questions, and now he's got me in emoji to shoot my mouth off. So I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I think you're absolutely right to bring up that point. And when you look at the language in the executive order too, it says things like, curriculum.
Hang on that. I've got to fit in a quick commercial break. I hate to interrupt us because I like where this conversation is going. One last break to get to, but lots still to talk about with Christopher Kane from the Washington Blade. Stay tuned.
Next time on Philosophy Talk, the life and thought of Iris Murdoch.
Murdoch may be best known for her fiction, but she was also a great philosopher.
She said, "Nothing in life is of any value except the attempt to be virtuous."
What about love, or cooking, or reading novels?
All just routes to virtue, Ray.
Really? My beef stroganoff?
Iris Murdoch. Next time on Philosophy Talk.
Catch Philosophy Talk every Sunday morning at 8 on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. That's Philosophy Talk.
Are you experiencing troubles with thinking, comprehending, or speaking, have post-COVID brain fog, ADHD, concussion, tremors from Parkinson's, mental health issues, or simply striving to maximize your brain's potential? At Hypercharge Wellness Centers, we deliver transformative results for the brain. Hypercharge Wellness's brain fitness protocol utilizes cutting-edge modalities, including PEMF, red light therapy beds, and transcranial laser, which all work together to improve focus and cognitive functions. These treatments aim to improve the brain's blood flow and electrical patterns, which reduces anxiety and enhances relaxation, providing a comprehensive approach to brain health optimization. All are invited to experience this life-changing journey towards achieving the pinnacle of cognitive and emotional well-being. Call or go online to schedule your free Hypercharge Wellness introductory session valued at $200 today. This is your opportunity to feel the difference for yourself. No matter where you are in the Twin Cities, there is a convenient location near you. Visit hyperchargeclinic.com now. That's hyperchargeclinic.com. Hypercharge is hope.
Brush up on your creativity at Twin Cities Pride's Paint by Numbers Night Out. Join the fun on Saturday, April 26th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Pride Cultural Arts Center. Whether you're a seasoned artist or can barely draw a stick figure, this is your chance to relax, paint, and connect with your community. For just $35, you'll get a Paint by Numbers kit, light refreshments, and a fun, relaxed space to let your inner artist shine. Come solo or bring a friend. Everyone's welcome. More info at tcpride.org. That's tcpride.org.
Hey, it's Patrick. Spring showers may bring May flowers, but they also bring big savings with Zero Res. And right now, you can beat the spring cleaning rush with big savings and priority booking by calling our heroes at Zero Res. Zero Res removes winter's buildup and lingering odors, giving your home a fresh, spring-ready feel, preparing your home for the brighter days ahead. Just check out the almost 21,000 raving customer service reviews online with a 4.9 Google rating and see what all the hype is about. This month, get 3 rooms Zero Resified from Minnesota's #1 carpet cleaner starting at just $119 and take $75 off an air duct cleaning as well. You owe it to yourself and your family to breathe healthy, happy, and clean. Call Zero Res right now at 9520-RES or go online to ZeroResMinnesota.com and say you want the AM 950 special. Spell it backward or forward, it's the same. Zero Res.
Welcome back to the Gaily Show. I'm your host, John Parker. It is 9 minutes before the top of the hour. We're here with White House correspondent for the Washington Blade, Christopher Kane. Christopher, if we can turn to another article that I want to talk about, because we've been covering that here from a local perspective around cuts to HHS. And there is an article that's up today, and I want to note the there's a section heading of I don't know why they hate public health so much. And what is happening from your vantage point around their cuts to HHS and how systematic it is?
So it's almost hard to wrap one's head around the scope of this. So about 3 weeks ago, Health Secretary RFK Jr. announced that there would be drastic cuts to the agencies that are under the umbrella of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which includes the National Institutes of Health. It includes the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and a lot of sub-agencies within those agencies. So the staffing reduction is going to be about 20,000 full-time workers who will either be separated from their jobs or basically either agree to terms for an early retirement or another kind of work out another option with the agency. But this is going to result in the shuttering of various departments and core functions within America's public health and infrastructure. And the interesting thing about this to me too is that, you know, a lot of these entities and individuals are working together in a lot of ways. And you know, the division that's responsible for developing new treatments relies on workers at the CDC to take their research and see if it works on the population level. So for instance, if you have like the new injectable version of PrEP to prevent new HIV infections, are people actually willing to use that? Are they more likely to use the injectable version than the daily pill? That kind of thing. So this is really going to substantially weaken America's public health and our ability to respond to outbreaks.
Well, In Trump country and MAGA country, there is a fentanyl crisis happening right now. And as I was reading through your article, so it's not just HIV funding. The fentanyl crisis is going to be drastically impacted because there's just not going to be folks to work on it.
That's right. And the fentanyl crisis, a lot of these things intersect with each other. So, for instance, the opioid crisis has led to epidemics of drug use, often intravenously with needles that are often shared by people who abuse drugs. And this leads to the transmission of bloodborne pathogens like hepatitis and HIV. So, for instance, about 10 years ago in a southern community in Indiana, people started using, there was an epidemic of intravenous use of oxymorphone, which is a potent opioid drug. And the use of shared needles led to a massive outbreak of HIV, the worst that rural America had ever seen. So we're talking a town of about 4,000 people that had no doctor, no addiction treatment centers, no addiction support groups. And all of a sudden, where they typically have about 5 new HIV cases per year, are experiencing a couple hundred. So, which was 50 times exceeding the national average at the time. So this can have really devastating consequences on communities that are already struggling with the fentanyl crisis, the opioid epidemic, and everything else.
There's also and apparently we're anti-science again, or for now in this country, but there's a lot of research that's being axed at the same time. And I think that folks can sit there and go, oh, well, it's just research. What's the big deal? But so much of our public health policies come from the research that folks were doing. So we may not be able to feel the impacts of this in 90 days, but in 900 days, we may be at a huge structural disadvantage.
That's right. And it also, to some extent, everything kind of is interrelated, right? Because America's public universities do so much of that drug discovery, basic and clinical science research work that leads to the introduction of game-changing pharmaceuticals. So, the impact on American business, a lot of pharmaceutical companies prefer to be headquartered in the United States, partially because they can charge a lot more than they can in Europe. But this is all related. You start cracking down on universities and cutting federal funding for basic and clinical science research, you're going to have less breakthroughs.
What is the justification? I mean, what is your take on? I mean, first of all, what did we do that instead of getting JFK Jr. or JFK, we get RFK Jr.? I mean, what karmic gamble did we lose? But from your perspective and your reporting, what is the end game here? Like, why are they doing this?
That's a really good question. It's a question that I asked the subject of my interview for that story that I published today. I said, what do you think is going on here? Do you think that they believe that the cost doesn't justify the investment? Is it? And he was like, well, from the available evidence, it looks like the administration just doesn't care about public health, and especially as concerns disfavored populations like trans people, gay men, etc.
Is it a situation where they feel like, well, if this like a states thing, where if people actually care about it, then they'll just go to the states? Is it a privatization thing? Or is it just we're getting rid of it and we don't care how it happens?
It's really hard to say. That they might be envisioning that states would pick up the slack, perhaps. That's something that Trump, regardless of kind of the context, right? He wants everybody to pay what he believes to be their fair share. So, we'll see. I think that, states are responsible to some extent for public health response, especially when there are public health emergencies. So I think what we're going to start to see is a big disparity between public health outcomes in a place like California versus somewhere more rural and conservative.
Christopher Kane, you always keep us grounded, and we are so grateful for your reporting and your time. You can read all of Christopher's reporting when you go to WashingtonBlade.com. We have a link in our show notes and on our website for you to read all of it. Thank you, Christopher, for being on The Gailey Show.
Thanks so much for having me.
And the Matt McNeil Show is coming up next. Stay tuned for Native Roots Radio after that. And until 2 p.m. tomorrow, keep it queer, America.
Keep it queer, for the Lord's sake.
Tune in this Saturday morning right here on